We're recording today. Welcome to our Sangha chat. Thank you for everybody who previously came on and shared, and those of you that are watching the replay. Takata and I are going to share a little bit about where we are today, and as we're coming into the last couple weeks of the year of the snake, the wood snake, and all the things that are still
nice.
This is a meme reference. I don't know if y'all heard that. But we are here just completely like releasing and then embracing what's next. But we're still not there yet. You know, we kind of like, I feel like there's this forward motion where I want to be there, but I'm still forced to be in this womb. And we've been in this period of completely frozen in over the last 3 days. And so we had a lot of physical.
It's like the seeds are there. They're under the ground, under the surface, and they're starting to pop up. But they haven't actually emerged.
They're still
underneath. So yes, like the anticipation of that, as Aurora spoke of earlier.
Peeking out, but they're still covered by all the dirt and leaves, because if they peeked out too early, they're going to get freezer burn. You know, and so we're in that freezer burn right now where we want to make sure that we still stay underneath, you know, and where we're safe and protected. And that also means nourishing practices, going within, you know, cooking for ourselves, slow food, a slow movement right now. And some of y'all had talked about, you know, the things that are in your activity level and having to just pull it back because we feel like there's things that we want to do. And I feel that same way. But then also realizing that it's time to still be at stillness and stay in that womb space and stay in that germination before that little seed can emerge and pop out. And that doesn't happen till Austera, you know, where the first daffodils and the first little daylilies start to poke their head through the icy ground and, you know, pop the greenery through the snow. But right now we're still in that going within, and we've been really in it.
Nothing else that you can do, but just making sure that that we have our food to eat, and that our place is safe and protected from the elements, and that the water is running, and the heat is on.
Yeah, we had a lot of prep because, as most of you know, we live in a tiny space. Even though we live on 9 acres, we live in a rotation of tiny spaces. Right here, we're in our healing house, which is the place where we hold our red tents and our inner cross retreats in a community space. And then we also have our RV where we have our living room and our bathroom and our dining room and our extra bedroom where we do our podcasting. And that space is more insulated, but it's pretty exposed because it's on wheels and it's above the ground and the wind can just whip under there. We have a greenhouse space for all of our massive tropical plant family, and that is difficult to protect when it hits 19 to 22 degrees. You know, those babies don't like to be below 65. You know, they get pissed off if they're below 50, really pissed off. And if it's below 30, they're going to just die. You know, they won't make it. And so we had to prepare everything. And this year we felt more prepared than we ever have. This is our year 4 going into, let's see, 22, 23, 24, 25. So our 4th winter going tiny. I know, it's
so hard to believe.
Hard to believe it's been 4 winters. We feel like we've really mastered the working with the elements. The elements are we always have to bow down to them and realize we're living close to the land and we're at their mercy. But
I think we've mastered the possibilities of what could happen and how to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, I was living in a lot of fear of what could possibly happen, because I had this deep fear of the cold. Even though I grew up in Colorado, as a child up into my teens, I moved here in 9th grade. I had this really deep fear, which I recently discovered was an ancestral fear of famine. And it comes from my Irish roots. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. And then also we wanted to talk about the frozen concept of what's happening with this freezing weather. We also had some freezing issues, which I'll turn over to you to share, which were really weird and correlated. And then also some freezing of digital freezing as well as literal freezing. And then a massive amount of just shit that happened. And I'm talking about literal shit. So look, every time we seem to be in this really deep ceremonial phase and a womb space, there is
Always
some
some
form of shit that happens as it's like a release and let go. And it usually comes in the form of dog shit, or when I had horses, my horse actually came into my yoga cabin and was watching the baby chicks, and she pooped in the yoga cabin when she was watching the baby chicks. She went in the whole front door and was standing there just watching the baby chicks, just laid a whole poop, you know. So there's just been this element of like ice and shit. And we did a whole photo shoot of me in my ceremonial blue velvet, my Nordic photo shoot, which was very Elsa Frozen themed. And we've been waiting to do this photo shoot for 2 winters, and we've missed the snow. And this time we're doing it, and it was so fucking cold because I only had the 2 layers on my velvet dress and my velvet coat to do the shoot. And
But she makes a great Elsa.
It was beautiful. I think it'll be worth it, but it was really cold. It was 23 or 22 when we were doing the photo shoot. So anyway, that happened. So this is kind of the last couple days, but we're going into it. We did a lot of prep, and you want to share about the frozen?
So in the process of preparing the property, the land, and then of course, our personal spaces,
including our trailer,
yeah,
where we sleep.
like all of the housing departments and every hose bib on the property, which now is at like 11 of them now with the added water.
So we recently added water to the residential side of the property. So we added 2 more RV slips through Maria, who owns our Mystic Hearts. And then she added in another hose bib behind the big metal building, which is called the Quonset hut, where we have our maker space and our retreat things stored. And then she added another one for our community garden, which we had just put in 4 raised beds. And that same week, it got the water installed and then put in 1 final hose bib for a future tiny house.
So as like now property caretaker, making sure that the land and everything is taken care of, I was making sure that everything was, all things were protected from the cold. And in the process, our refrigerator starts like getting warmer and warmer and warmer as the temperature daily is getting colder and colder and colder. And it's like, what is happening to the fridge?
Yeah. On day 3, things started going bad. And I was like, okay, we have a laser thermometer. And it was like 55, and then it was 60. And I'm like, okay, this food is not going to last. And so we had to figure out.
Our fridge is not working and the cold is coming. So what's really happening here? So in the process, we had to distribute our food to various locations.
Well, we just obtained a deep freeze on property. So another element of freezing, we obtained more food storage and a 3/4 mini fridge. And so we had access to a couple places extra that were not available before to put food. And so we're like, okay, so we can have a place to move it. We had actually had to end up buying ice. And when we went to go buy propane, like literally buying bags of ice to put in a cooler, even though it's about to freeze.
So, of course, moving moving the food across the property into various, housing facilities, different and freezers, etc., was a job in and of itself. But also we had to, prepare, like clean the deep freeze before we could put the things in it.
Right.
We're trying to get all the things of the land taken care of.
It was about to freeze, and I was going to plug in the deep freeze. And I'm like, if I plug it in, I won't be able to wipe it down. And so we were ready to do the deep freeze. And the next morning, we were able to move everything from our tiny freezer, including bobcat legs that I had from my taxidermy project, and several various birds that we're saving for feathers, and a baby frozen bunny.
Because, that's just how we roll.
That's what happens in a witch's freezer.
Tiny freezer, half of it is dead animals, not for eating.
But then we did have a lot of venison from her father, who's a hunter, and my best friend's husband, who's a hunter.
So then we're getting everything taken care of, getting everything buttoned down, and then also now we have to pull the fridge out of its,
housing
built-in cabinet within the RV, which is, like it's screwed in, so you have to unscrew it and pull the whole thing out. And then we're like, we just need to unplug it. It's probably frozen, up
because
inside.
the freezer is still working.
Yeah, so it comes up, it's likely frozen back behind there.
So,
it's wired in.
It doesn't even have a plug, y'all.
It's not plugged in, it's wired in. So now I have to flip the breakers, disconnect wire, and then, figure that whole thing out, defrost it. The whole thing from behind the freezer all the way down was frozen solid.
There's one solid block of ice in the back. So once we finally figured out that it was still working, we couldn't figure out how to unplug it until she could figure out how to turn off the breaker and unwire it. So once she got it unwired, then it actually started melting as the temperature outside was dropping.
Like
so we wanted to get it defrosted before it was actually freezing, so we could actually have food storing in our RV when it was actually freezing outside. So it was this weird irony. And so we were literally in a space of unfreezing, and whatever that was frozen. And so there's been a theme this whole weekend.
Yeah, so what are we defrosting? Where in our lives
are things frozen?
Are things frozen that need movement? And how can we, clear it, warm it up, defrost it? How can we get it back to movement and flow state?
Right. And so we realized there was several things that we had continued to be frozen. And through this, I made this beautiful potato chicken soup. And
it was like chicken pot pie soup.
We invented the recipe. We took a combination of a couple of different recipes. Like I mentioned, slow food.
I wish we had more.
Oh, it's so good. I don't want to make it again. We did.
Still want more.
It was so good, so nourishing, and it had like so many vegetables, like all the colors of the rainbow. It had cauliflower and carrots and lima beans and potatoes. And so I originally got out 2 potatoes. And this is where the story of my ancestors had come in with that feeling that I had received. And when I was getting ready to make the stew, I was like, well, I want to maybe add 1 more potato so that the stew will be a little bit more nourishing. We'll have a little bit extra, for the next couple days. And so we originally had 2 potatoes, half a cauliflower, a whole bunch like carrots. We also added a bunch of celery. And so all these veggies were all piled up, ready to be sauteed, the onion and the garlic. And
some of them were like, no, we need to use these because they've been transferred multiple times
to the fridge. And they were like, just,
they're still good, but we got to
use it now. How when you make soup, sometimes you're like, I'm just going to use what's in the fridge because I got to use it up. And so that's kind of how it was. But then we started looking like, this looks like a chicken pot pie. So we got out some chicken and we ended up looking up some pot pie recipes and, added some things in there to make it more like some flour and some, to make it a thicker base and blah, blah, blah. And I had just made some sourdough. And then we had made some biscuits.
Yeah, I found a can of biscuits in the
I
fridge.
decided the biscuits were buried back there, which we didn't even know. And I decided I was going to use another potato. And so when I went to the cabinet to pull the potatoes out of our we have those little Spanish or Mexican olla pots, and it has the terracotta with the lid where you put the root vegetables in, so it keeps them fresh. And I opened it up, and there was, mind you, I already had 2 in there. There was 2 in the cabinet, and I looked at the potatoes, and I was like, oh, I better not use that second potato because that means we only have 1 potato left. And then this like gut-wrenching fear of famine hit me. Now, I've never missed a meal unintentionally in my life. I've never been in a place where I was starving. I don't know where that came from, but it was unconscious. It was in my DNA. And I remembered the potato famine. And all of a sudden I sat there, I sat with it. And I have Irish roots. My grandfather was feral. My father was feral. My great-grandfather was O'Farrell. And beyond that was in Ireland, O'Farrell. So I come from the O'Farrell. And you come from an Irish clan as well.
My family is the Rays, which came from Reagan, which was Oregon.
So,
and then on the other side, I have the Crawfords,
I'll
which
drop
were
in the potatoes.
Scottish.
Just drop the potato emoji. Yes, and so the potato
Reagans and O'Farrells.
So we have this Irish DNA, but I realized there was an ancestral fear of famine and cold, which I'd never correlated to my Irish roots. I knew it was Nordic, and I was like, I always say I've spent so many fucking time cold that I'm done with the cold. And we had just kind of talked about that, but realizing that there was 1 potato left, and I looked at the pot, and I had this fear, like, well, what if I can't get any more potatoes? And this is the only potato. It's not going to be enough to feed 2 people. And I had this slight panic. And then it passed, but then I dropped back into it and I sat with it, and I'm like, where is this coming from? And I remembered in my soul that my Irish ancestors were starving during the potato famine, and there was still 6 more weeks of winter left, and they were down to their last potato. And it was really a deep experience for me to realize that I still carry this fear, and it's up to me to clear this fear from my ancestors. On top of that, they were oppressed because the Irish were extremely judged. They were mocked. They were not held in the eyes of society as equal. There was a lot of inequality. There was a lot of judgment. They were just downright mean to my ancestors. And all this came from that, looking at that potato and realizing that, yeah, when it thaws out, I can go to the store. I can go to HEB and get some more potatoes. But at this moment, we have 1 potato left and it's about to freeze. So that came up, which was huge. Mm-hmm. And identifying where there is still fear around abundance in my DNA. And knowing where it comes from means that when I clear it for me, I clear it for all that are in my bloodline, in the past and in the future. It goes quantum. It goes in both directions when we clear things like that. And so that deep work that we do on our shadow, it also helps those that are still on the other side that weren't able to do that deep work or couldn't do the deep work or didn't finish their work, because we're here to finish that. So that happened. And then we thawed out the freezer with a blow dryer for hours, blow drying and thawing and blow drying and thawing. And then she took a butter knife and was chipping at it and being super careful to bend the little metal things that are, what are they called? I don't know, the part of the fridge that makes the refrigerant. And she was bending them all back together and making them all, where they're even again, and they were flowing, and then the water started pouring. And so then it started moving. And so we started moving the water, And meanwhile, we're outside buckling down. We're wrapping tarps around the north side of our RV. She put tarp around the north side of our trailer. We got the cactuses that were all outside. We covered our San Pedro, our great grandfather cactus, with a big old tote and towels, and wrapped it with a tarp. And then we covered up our other cactuses and put them inside the giant metal building and put a heater on them. And then she put a metal heater inside the tropical greenery greenhouse. And then she also was like
propane heater.
And in addition, put the propane, which was huge.
Yeah.
Game changer. So
Yeah.
you want to share about that piece?
Well, I went to check on it at 6 in the morning because I was like, are the babies
Well,
okay?
to back up before that.
What part?
Before you turn on the gas. It was 25 degrees in there, y'all.
Oh yeah,
in our greenhouse. We're like, this little tiny metal heater isn't doing crap. It was not able to keep up at all. We created a thermal generator by having the heater point to a 30-gallon trash can full of water, which made the water hot, which created like a thermal conductor inside there. Wasn't doing squat when it got down to 22 and below 4 wind chill. And so she did the laser in there and determined that it was. We're like, is this laser working? She was like up underneath the edge of the greenhouse and shooting a little laser, and it was like 25, 30, 33, 22. I'm like, is this reading right? How could it be so cold in there so quickly? It had only been a couple hours since it dropped. And she's like, okay, plan B. She had created plan B. So it was time for plan B. And
it's a propane heater. It's set up in there. It's like a mini
restaurant style.
Like the propane tower warmer things you could stand around. It's a mini version of that. Anyways, hook that up. Propane fired up, and I went and checked it at like 6 in the morning, and it was 75.
75, and it was 22 outside. So those little plants are like, yeah,
they were living it up. But you can't spend much time in there because it's a propane. So you have to literally take a breath outside, hold your breath, walk inside, deal with it, come out, take a breath, because it's like,
it's like diving. Like you don't have any air in there.
Yeah.
Carbon monoxide. The plants can breathe it because it turns to carbon dioxide, which the plants can assimilate. But for us, we cannot breathe it at all. So she was going in, come back out, close it, take a breath, going in,
It's like I'm having to dive into the greenhouse to keep it going, which I need to go turn.
Yes,
the
better
heater
go do
back
that as soon as this is over.
It's been a journey, but in the process, also,
our dog had a major poop last night before last, and last night, 2 nights in a row.
So our 3 new rugs that we've just put into the RV in our upgrading has, one got destroyed 2 nights ago. We woke up, we come in, dogs are like, let us out. And there's a massive pile of shit on the rug. And we're like, oh my God. So I pulled the rug.
And it's frozen outside, so there's nothing we can do. All the pipes are wrapped up,
Shake off what we can. I bring it and I rinse it with warm water, get it like cleaned off and
in the
hose
shower.
down in the shower, hang it up, let it dry, which knocked the shower pole down, nails me in the eye.
3 times.
Boom. I get it back up there. I start to hang it back. It falls again. Boom. 3 times that thing fell and nailed me in the same spot on the eye. I'm like, what is this message? I don't even know still, whatever. I haven't had time to see what that's trying to tell me. Finally got the rug clean and then dried and then vacuumed and put it all back in
nice
place.
And bright teal again.
It was all pretty, put it back into place. This morning we wake up,
poop.
There's poop on the same rug, but also a pile on each rug.
Plus the dog bed. Like literally this time it was 4 poops.
All 3 rugs. So all 3 rugs have to be extracted, hosed down, which I had to go get a hose that wasn't frozen and hook up to a pipe that wasn't frozen.
It was above freezing today, so there was that. So that happened too, and it's been a theme like after major ceremonies that
when
we've held,
things are going, when we're just like
upgrading and in it.
There's always shit.
Yep, whether it's horses or dogs or chickens.
Almost every ceremony we've ever held, when it's wrapped up and it's done, and we're like, okay, it's time to
rest.
Go to bed. Nope, you got a pile of shit. You got to
And
deal
especially
with
the dogs. It's like the dogs are like this messenger of like, oh, but there's more shit that you just have to clear before you go to bed, or before this ceremony is over. You just have to clear this.
There's a little bit more shit to do.
God.
Oh.
And then through the midst of all that, we got to do my photo shoot, which we've been manifesting for 2 winters. And so in the winter solstice of 2020, before she and I knew that we were twin flames, before we had any recognition that we had a mission further than business partners and ceremony partners and retreat partners on this planet, we sat in winter solstice ceremony together, which was to date the coldest MFN ceremony that we've ever held. It was on my land, and we had been rotating our seat around the medicine wheel, east, south, west, north, east, and then we were back to the south. And so we were sitting in the south, which means that our circle, we were sitting on the side by the river. White limestone, beautiful cascading waterfall. It had just kind of gotten crispy and a little snow. And so we set our fire up, women down, set their ceremony space. We set it by the river, had all of our instruments laid out, and that wind started coming in. That north wind was not playing. And north wind was like, oh yeah, you're gonna sit in ceremony on winter solstice? I'll tell you what. And we're like, ah! And here we are on the backside to the creek, and it just whipped through the canyon, and it was so fucking cold. And we still held ceremony, and our daughter was in that one.
The medicine was strong.
The medicine was real strong, and it was
extra strong.
So powerful. And that wind just calibrated that ceremony to a whole nother level. And her daughter and I actually spooned because she was so cold. And there was a really significant photo that I channeled. Now, I had not known her daughter that well because we'd only known each other for less than a year at that point. And I, in the middle of medicine, and her daughter was like sitting with me, and then we were laying down on the ground. We went to go sit by Takata by the fire, and I was holding her.
No, I came over to you.
Oh, you came to us, and she laid down by us. And both of mine and Takata's heads were back to back, but they were opposite. And I said, can you stand up and take a photo of us? There's something really important about this moment. I don't know what it is. And we both had our headdresses on. So I had to balance my head on the ground so I didn't knock off my headdress, and same thing with her. But we had a picture of us yin and yang with both of our heads on the white limestone that her daughter took. Didn't know that we were twin flames. I'll find that photo because it's really crazy, like so perfectly matched. And then she kind of went back to, being in her cocoon and her sleeping bag by the fire. That headdress it was really important and significant for me as a medicine woman. It was my Nordic headdress, my Valkyrie headdress, and it's steel. And she gave me a chain from her grandmother that is great grandmother that hangs on the back of the headdress, and it hangs across my face as a face chain when I wear it. And so since that moment was so significant, looking back on it, there was lots of breadcrumbs. And so I was wanting to do a shoot now in this day and age, in this timeline.
Day and age. As opposed to like 500.
Well, you know what I mean? Like, it's very much an old world type look. And so we did a whole photo shoot. So you want to talk about that?
First, I want to say if y'all haven't watched The Discovery of Witches on Netflix, it's totally worth
The whole
diving
series.
into. The series, you know, there's an element of cheese to it.
It's
but
not cheesy. I like it.
just a little. It's doable for me. I'm just like, you know, but we're in season 2 and that shit is getting real good. But there is some like
There's some parallels.
there's parallels.
Yeah.
Speaking of different ages. Anyways.
So this photo shoot actually manifested. We have been calling in. The next time it's icy and white, I'm going to put on my velvet dress with huge, long, witchy sleeves and the velvet jacket and my Nordic headdress with the Valkyrie wings. And we're going to go and do this shoot. And mind you, it happened, but it was 22 degrees out. I had, you know, but in order for the shoot to look right, I couldn't wear my coat. So that was intense.
You had to brave it.
It was intense. So I'm praying that the pictures are worth it and the videos are worth it. But that happened too throughout all of this. So,
and the other freezing. What else froze in this process? What else have we experienced?
Oh,
freezing.
My PayPal got frozen. Yeah, disabled. Yeah. So
right after
we got on the call, Mandy was on the call.
Right
after that call, Mandy, I kid you freaking not. We had our first Temple of Sacred Heart Board of Directors meeting with Mandy and Malik. And we were talking about this happening back in 2024 when I went to Costa Rica. And this was a huge journey. I'll share this on a different call. But what happened is that I had a couple tuition payments that were coming in, which were going to fund when I was in Costa Rica. So I would have funds to come home in my bank account. Well, when I was down there, then all of a sudden, the funds that were sent for those tuition payments got frozen. And I looked in my square, and my square said, your funds are your account is disabled. And I'm like, what? And so I didn't know what happened. And I contacted customer support when I got on Wi-Fi. And they said, well, you have 120 days. You have to read this fucking 52-page description of what our terms and conditions are. So I couldn't decipher what had happened, especially because I didn't have very good Wi-Fi and I didn't want to read a 52-page description. And I didn't know what happened.
Legal jargon.
But the bottom line was that the money was in the square and it had been pulled out of our clients, both of their bank accounts. So it was being held as hostage. And then my Stripe got shut down. And then my Eventbrite got shut down. All in a row when I was in Costa Rica. And I still hadn't known what happened. And so
we were having the conversation, talking about all of this
on our board of directors meeting, trying to figure out solutions for our payments and for our auto payments and for tuitions and subscriptions to make it easy for people. And we had created these subscription links, which were seeming to be easy. Shalise knows, she used it, it worked. Kaya knows, she used it, it didn't work. You know, so like there's these, what was happening. And then we were talking about this on Monday, and literally as soon as we got off the call, I got
before we were off the call with Malik.
Yeah, then PayPal got frozen.
She gets a message. Your PayPal has been disabled.
And the PayPal is our merchant service for our shop. And so, you know, we're like, what's happening? Why is this freezing? And she's like, remember, everything's happening for us, not to us. So what is happening here? And so we were forced to go in, and I was on customer service tech support for a couple hours, and digging into it, I also went into my old Square and on customer service to see if it was reactivated, and found out that account was actually deactivated. And I found out why is because they had listed a page on my old website, my Yoga for Love website, where I had been taking orders for Aiyllah's Magic Honey, but it had the word microdosing in it. So they assumed that it had magic mushrooms in it, and they shut down my Square based on that page. And then it shut down the Stripe, and then it shut down the Eventbrite, all boom, boom, boom.
It shut down my Square.
And then when I was in Costa Rica, I was trying to transfer the funds to her account. She added my bank account to her account so she could send me money. Her Square got shut down.
They shut down mine.
And so this was all in September of 2024. And so those accounts had been disabled. And so then
the thing is, they told her why, not that it's
well, they finally gave me an explanation.
Yeah.
But
they never gave me one.
Zero.
They literally sent me, you can look at section 12 and 13 of our terms. And I go and look, and it says we have the right to refuse and deactivate for any reason at any time for anyone.
And so she got no explanation. So then we're like, okay, we have to research. Are we supposed to move to Bitcoin? Are we supposed to move to crypto? Are we supposed to use a different payment processor than these other ones that are fucking monopolizing our money? I felt very disconnected to the current C that we have agreed to, and I felt really angry. And so that was unthawing in me, is this really righteous anger about how the currency has been so distorted in our reality, and that they have that kind of control where they literally could switch it off. And Shalisa just used the subscription link, so they switched it off and then kept a hold of her money. I'm like, okay, that's not cool. You can't just switch that off and then take the money and just freeze it. Luckily, the refund button was still there, so we could zero that out and they couldn't have control of her money. But still, this is crazy that they can control these kind of things. And they meaning, I don't even know who's controlling it, but it's not me. It's not sovereign.
Defrosting, but it's not unfrozen yet.
So
we've got to find what the solution is that doesn't give
our sovereignty. It's
it doesn't give up our own sovereignty to process and receive, right? Like essentially they're blocking our ability to
give or receive. We can't move
because we can't pay people from what we received from the shop. We get it's like
shut down.
And so I don't want any entity to have that level of control over the flow of our currency,
our rivers and streams of income.
So now we get to figure out, how to defrost it. What's the better way to go?
Yeah, and it's freezing again for the next couple nights, and so we're still in this womb. And so we're inviting everybody here to still be in the womb space with us, even though it feels like we want to take action and, sprout those little seeds and get this stuff out there in the world and start pollinating. It is not time. Sit your ass down, woman. Sit your ass down and realize that you will get burned. You'll get frostbite right now. Put your gloves on. What'd she say?
She said, and then we get taxed for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So how can we create a sovereign space where we are doing energy exchange, but we're not giving away 10% fees every time we want to make a transfer, and all these ridiculous amounts of money that people that we don't even, do business with are keeping, and so we want to make sure that we're finding sovereign solutions to our trade, because our trade is our work and that's our livelihood, but that's also our mission. And so we've tied our livelihood completely into our mission, because now our mission statement is and our livelihood and our life as one. We have no separation between those things. So now how can we work with the currency and the sovereignty of money and create that flow for all of us, so that we all are working in the space of being autonomous and have decisions that can be made for our own financial abundance that do not have to be under the governing thumb of Big Brother. So that's where we're at. Summary.
Yeah.
So yes. So thank you so much for staying on for our share and being here for this. And I'm going to go ahead and just wrap up by saying, We are still in the womb. Austera is coming. Austera is the candle moss. It is the February 1st and 2nd. It is the symbol of milk and honey, where the baby ewes and the baby goats are being born, and the milk starts flowing, and then the bees start coming back as the little tiny pollinators start coming. We know that spring is coming. So that's that promise that we will not starve, that promise that there is no famine, that promise that spring is coming. And so that's this weekend as we record this. So I'd love to continue this conversation in our song chat. For those of you that are in our mystery school, for those of you that are catching this replay, please comment. What is alive for you right now? And what is frozen or unfreezing for you right now? And I'm going to go ahead and stop the call. We have somebody else on our chat, so stay on for a Q&A and to meet also our sisters and brothers in the Egyptian Mystery School. So let's take a moment just to close with an Om. Deep breath in. Release. Ah. Deep breath in and Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Namaste. Thank you for being here. See you on the next call.